Welcome and thank you for joining me today. This is a lecture series. Please make sure you have paper and pencils ready to take notes. The better your notes, the more help they will be to you later on. This series is designed to explain the standards for the Oklahoma Academic Standards for 8th grade. Today we're going to look at two writing standards combined, 8.4.W.1 and W.2. This is 8th grade Standard 4 Writing, number 1 and number 2. Number 1 reads, students will use domain-appropriate vocabulary to communicate ideas in writing clearly. Number 2 is students will select appropriate language to create a specific effect according to purpose in writing. Please pause the video and write down the verbiage of this standard. So let's talk a little bit about appropriate language. There is an appropriate language for when you're with your friends. There's an appropriate language for when you are in a place of worship. There's appropriate language perhaps when you're standing with a judge, or if you are with your parents, or if you're writing a paper. So let's just break it down to these two different kinds of appropriate language today. There's the social language and the academic language. A social language is how you talk to your friends. Think of some of the things that you might say to your friends if you're describing a book or a movie. You're going to use different words with your friends than you do with your teacher. At least you should. We want our academic language to be a little bit more formal. We don't want to use slang words, and we definitely do not want to use inappropriate words. We want to use words that are the language of textbooks and newspapers. So we need to make sure we're using the appropriate language when we're asked to write. Why is academic language so important? You might say, I communicate well with my friends, I communicate well with my family. Why is it important that I learn how to write correctly or write academic language correctly? First of all, because academic language is a language of power. Powerful people use academic language. It's also the language of academic success. It's the language that you will be given on assessments, and it's the language of textbooks. Whenever you master using academic language and reading academic language, then it's much more likely that you're going to find success in the academic setting, like at school or in college or university, and even on into a professional setting in the future. Otherwise, you may struggle academically or at school, and you may even be at a risk for dropping out of school. So it's very important to give attention to learning academic language. What are some of the differences? Informal or social languages. We repeat words often. When we're talking to our friends, we especially repeat slang words or euphemisms or words that we get used to using. Take a second to think about some of those words that you repeat often with your friends. Also, in informal and social language, we start sentences with the words and or but. And we use slang such as guys, cool, y'all, awesome, you know, yeah. But in academic language, we use a large variety of words, and we use even more complex words. Did you watch my last lecture on the dictionary and thesaurus and using those to learn to use different words in our academic language? Academic language usually starts with transitional words such as however, moreover, in addition, maybe even first, second, third, or next, or even the word then. And in academic language, there is no slang. If you like, pause the video and write down the difference between informal language and academic language. You may be asking yourself, how can you gain a better vocabulary? How can you understand academic vocabulary? All I can say is read, 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 and read. Reading as much as you possibly can every day is going to help you to gain a better vocabulary. If you come across words you don't know, stop. Look them up. Try to understand them. Break them down. Figure out the root words. Figure out the prefixes and the suffixes. Look at the context of the words. Learn how to use new words. So consider these factors before you begin to write. If you're going to write and you know you need to have a certain type of language, first you need to determine what the purpose is. Is the prompt that you're given, is it asking you to persuade somebody, to inform somebody, to entertain somebody, or to describe something? So we have to first choose the purpose. Then we're going to look at our audience. Who are we writing this for? If your teacher asks you to write an informational paragraph on how to brush your teeth to a 2-year-old, your language is going to be vastly different than if you are addressing a large essay to dental hygienist students. So you have to identify your audience and make sure your language fits that person. Are they your peers? Are you writing for the purpose of talking to somebody your own age? Or are you speaking to authority? Who is your audience? Then you need to consider your tone. Are they asking you to write in a more informal tone? Perhaps they ask you your opinion on something, and you're supposed to inform somebody of an event that happened or describe somebody of an event that happened when you were hanging out with your friends. So you might use a more informal tone in that case. So there's 3 factors that you want to discover before you sit down to write: your purpose, your audience, and then your tone. Please pause the video and write down these factors now. Let's look back at what our standard was asking us to do. It was asking us to use domain-appropriate vocabulary to communicate ideas in writing clearly. Also, it was telling us that students will select appropriate language to create a specific effect according to purpose in writing. Now that you understand what this standard is about, please practice these skills by writing from assignments from your teacher or your parent, and then take an assessment to ensure that you have mastery of the skill. Thank you for joining me today.